My husband died 4 years ago, but every month I was still sending him money until one call from the bank exposed the truth. I thought I had already experienced the worst kind of pain a person could endure the day they told me my husband, Ryan, had died in a tragic accident. The kind of sudden, cruel news that doesn't just break your heart, but completely erases the future you once believed in. And for years, I carried that grief like a silent weight inside me, learning how to exist in a world that no longer felt like home, convincing myself that loss was something you eventually learn to live with. But I was wrong, because nothing, absolutely nothing, prepares you for the moment when grief turns into betrayal so deep it makes you question every memory you ever held onto. It had been 4 long years since his funeral, 4 years of sleepless nights, empty mornings, and pretending to be okay in front of people who praised my strength without ever understanding the quiet pain I carried. And during all that time, I did something I never told anyone, something that felt like my last connection to him. I kept sending money every single month to pay off what I believed were his hidden debts, because shortly after his death, letters began arriving, official-looking, cold, and urgent, claiming that he had left behind financial obligations he had never told me about. And even though a small part of me felt hurt by the idea that he had kept secrets, I convinced myself that love meant loyalty, even after death, that honoring him meant fixing the mistakes he couldn't fix anymore. So month after month, without fail, I transferred $500, cutting back on my own life, skipping vacations, working extra shifts at the hospital, sacrificing small comforts, all for a man I thought I had lost forever. Over time, it became routine, almost automatic, like a ritual of grief I couldn't let go of, until one ordinary afternoon, everything I believed shattered with a single phone call. I was at work when my phone rang, the number unfamiliar, and when I answered, the voice on the other end introduced herself as a representative from the bank, her tone polite but slightly hesitant, as if she wasn't sure how to say what she needed to say, and after confirming my identity, she paused before asking a question that made my stomach tighten. "Ma'am, can you explain these recurring transfers you've been making?" At first, I didn't think much of it, assuming it was just a routine verification, so I calmly explained about my husband's debts, about how I had been paying them off since his death. But there was silence on the other end, a silence that stretched just a little too long before she spoke again, her voice now serious, almost cautious, saying something that made the world around me feel like it was collapsing. "We've reviewed your account, and there are no debts under your husband's name, none at all." My heart skipped, my fingers tightening around the phone as I tried to process what she was saying, and I remember laughing nervously, telling her there must be a mistake, that I had been receiving letters for years, that I had proof. But then she said something that sent a cold wave of fear through my entire body. "The account you've been sending money to, it's not connected to any official loan, and the funds are being withdrawn every month by the account holder." My breathing became shallow, my mind racing as a terrifying possibility began to form, one I didn't want to believe, one that felt too cruel, too impossible to be true. And with a trembling voice, I asked her the question I wasn't ready to hear the answer to. "Whose account is it?" There was another pause, heavier this time, before she gave me a name that shattered whatever was left of my reality. Ryan, my husband, the man I had buried, the man I had mourned, the man I believed was gone forever. I don't remember much after that moment, only that the phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor as my entire body went numb, my mind replaying every detail of his death, the closed casket I was never allowed to open, the rushed funeral, the way everything had happened so quickly, too quickly, and suddenly all those moments I had accepted without question began to feel like pieces of a lie I had been too broken to see. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, not as a memory, but as something unfinished, something unresolved. And instead of resting, I tore through years of documents, emails, bank statements, anything that could help me understand what was happening until I found it, a pattern, a trail, every single payment leading to the same account, the same hidden truth I had unknowingly been feeding for years. By morning, exhaustion had turned into something sharper, something stronger, anger mixed with a desperate need for answers, and without thinking, I went straight to the bank, demanding to speak to someone who could explain everything, refusing to leave until I knew where my money had been going. And after hours of waiting, questioning, and pushing past their hesitation, they finally gave me what I needed, an address linked to the account. My hands were shaking as I drove, my thoughts spiraling out of control, part of me still hoping there was some explanation, some mistake, something that could undo the horror of what I was beginning to understand. But deep down, I already knew the truth was waiting for me at the end of that road. When I finally arrived, the house looked ordinary, almost peaceful, the kind of place where nothing unusual ever seems to happen. And as I stood there staring at the front door, my heart pounded so violently it felt like it might break through my chest, every instinct telling me to turn around, to go back to the life where he was dead, and my memories were still untouched by betrayal, but I couldn't walk away anymore. I raised my hand and knocked, each second stretching into eternity, until the door slowly opened, and there he was, Ryan, alive, standing right in front of me, not a ghost, not a dream, but real, breathing, existing in a life I was never meant to see. And for a moment, time stopped, the world around us disappearing as we stared at each other. But the look in his eyes wasn't relief, it wasn't love, it was fear. Pure and undeniable, the fear of someone who has just been caught in a lie too big to escape. Before I could speak, before I could even process the reality of what I was seeing, a woman appeared behind him, her hand resting protectively on the shoulder of a small child who peeked out from behind her. And in that moment, my heart didn't just break, it shattered completely, because everything became clear in a way words could never fully explain. He hadn't died. He hadn't been taken from me. He had chosen to leave, to disappear, to create a new life while I stayed behind, mourning a man who was never gone, sending him money every month without ever realizing I was supporting the life he had built without me. My voice finally broke the silence as I whispered his name, not with love, but with a pain so deep it felt unbearable, and he quickly stepped outside, closing the door behind him like I was nothing more than a secret he needed to keep hidden, his face tense, his voice low as he said words that will haunt me forever. You weren't supposed to find out. And in that moment, I understood something I never thought I would, that death may take someone away from you, but it also gives you a kind of closure, a way to grieve and eventually heal. But betrayal doesn't end. It lingers. It poisons every memory, every moment, every piece of love you once believed in, until you're left in the ruins of a life that was built on lies, wondering how someone you trusted with your whole heart could choose to erase you like you never mattered at all.